Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the DBFM podcast. My name is Alex Emery, and I'm going to be your host today. I'm going to be talking about a ton of different stuff, from stress and managing that so that you don't get overwhelmed, dealing with isolation in the event that we ever have to go through that again, growing up in the modern world, specifically mine, so the 2010s, the late 2000s, and then managing your work life, your family life, and social life, just so that you don't get overwhelmed like I found myself getting in the past. So I think it's going to be a really informative and fun hour, so I'm super happy to be here. But before we begin with that, I should go over a couple of introductory things. So first of all, who am I? You'd want to know that just because you're going to be listening to my voice for an hour. So just a background on that. My name is Alex Emery, and I'm a senior at Poland Regional High School. I've been really involved with theater, chorus, and band. I play the alto saxophone and the tenor saxophone, I guess that too. And I was a Boy Scout for a decade. That was a really important part of my life. And I love languages. I'm learning Italian right now and Spanish too. The Romance languages are just really awesome, I think. So that's just a bit about me. Why am I doing this podcast? It's for a special project for school called the Senior Celebration, which is a culmination of really all of our learning, like over the past 12 to 13 years, to really tie up these things like that we've learned in a neat little bow tie, or tie, or ribbon, whatever it is. And it's a really specially tailored project to your own personal liking. So some people are building things, some people are making presentations, and for me, I'm making a podcast. I decided to do this because I'm going into the field of speech pathology, where I'm going to be helping people learn how to speak, be it again or for the first time after really debilitating things like strokes or just cognitive issues. But it's a really personal path because I'm not sure if you could tell already, but I've had a stutter since I was 6 years old. So for my entire life, really, talking has really been an issue. But through acting and through memorizing lines and through singing and getting into that flow state, I've really found ways to deal with it and to get past it. I see some people who really suffer with it and they can't move on from it. And so if I can help people with that, I think that'll be really helpful, because speaking is probably one of the most important skills that you can have in this modern world, just because you're talking to people on a daily basis, constantly getting info across. It's really important. So that's my dream for the future, I guess, to be a speech pathologist. But then to wrap it up, who is my audience? My audience really, I guess, are high school students from the ages of 13 to 18, really just people within that freshman to senior sort of time period, and then also teachers, just because they're going to be the ones grading this. So, there's that. But without further ado, let's get started. The first thing I really want to talk about today is stress and managing it, just because I found that in high school it's a really, really, really stressful time in your life, between schoolwork and managing your social life. It's a real nightmare. And I found specifically, by dealing with those stressors directly, head on, you're really setting yourself up for success. With projects in the past, I've been pretty bad with procrastination, with not wanting to do it, just because I have a really awesome TV show I'm watching right now. And that's been a real struggle for a lot of people. And in COVID, with the lockdown, for PRHS specifically, we had this sort of hybrid plan going into the school year of from 2020 to 2021, in that fall, where we had different cohorts, A and B, where some kids would be in cohort A and some kids would be in cohort B. And so while cohort A was in school, let's say Monday and Tuesday, cohort B was learning from home, doing pre-assigned work on their laptops online at home by themselves, without teachers and without that whole environment. And even though the schoolwork itself was a lot easier, and I mean a lot easier, people still struggled, just because at home there's so many distractions. You're in your own environment where it's not tailored specifically to get you to want to get work done. I myself didn't really struggle with that so much just because I get so hyper-focused on what I'm doing, so I kind of block everything out. But some other people aren't so tunnel-visioned and really found it a lot more difficult. It was really something to see like a bunch of my friends, like who I knew were incredibly smart, like some of the smartest people I knew, but just didn't have that drive to get done the schoolwork just because of the environmental change. So really, for managing stress, the most important thing, at least to me, is probably your environment. So finding like a good workplace to get that work done, to really hammer it out, and to set yourself up for success, the environment is definitely the most important thing. And so finding one is obviously tough for people who aren't students, so people out in the real world working and stuff like that. But for us in school, I think that we have a bit of an easier time just because we have an institution designed for it. For me, I've found like that, especially in senior year, I've been going to the library as opposed to going to lunch. Well, I've also been going through like a caloric deficit, which I'll get into later. But I go in there just to get work done, to really finish up some loose ends from my academic support the block before that, to tie it all up and be set, like so that I don't have to do work at home where I know that I have just a ton of distractions. So for those of you who really struggle with that, I'd say that's probably what you should try next is finding a really positive work environment that is separate and isolated from your regular relaxing house. But with that being said, I do want to move on to dealing with isolation. Now, I'm not just talking about the COVID isolation because it's on its way out, but really just being alone, not really having other people to sort of help you through stuff. So really just finding ways to move forward on your own. I found that, well, even though I'm not talking specifically about COVID, I'm going to talk about COVID because that's an absolute treasure trove. But I found like that in COVID, in the beginning, I didn't have anything that I was looking forward to, that I was working towards. I sort of stagnated. In that March and in those first couple of weeks, I wasn't doing anything. I said, "Oh my God, this is like a sweet what did I call that? Coronication, I think I said. Yeah, sweet coronication. Like I said, sweet coronication. Oh my God, I'm getting nothing done. Like, this is gonna be sick." And so I did that. And then a couple of weeks went by, and then I didn't do anything again, obviously, because I didn't have anything to do. And then another couple of weeks went by, and school like kind of started again, remote, so we had super easy work. So I did that, like, just because at that point, like, I was so bored, I didn't really have anything else to do. But so I did the schoolwork, and that took from like 8 o'clock to like 12. And so it was super, super easy. But from 12, like until bedtime, like I didn't have anything to do. I was so done with video games, done with movies, and I needed some variety in my life. But I didn't go out, and I didn't feed that desire to do like anything else because really everything was closed. Everybody was scared. And I stagnated. I didn't do anything. I got into the worst shape of my life, I think. I got up to like 195 pounds. Like in my boredom, I said, you know what? I don't think I look that good in the mirror. And so I just got out and like I did 20 push-ups. And like I took a picture of myself in the mirror and said, I can kind of see some muscle there, but I'm not really happy with where I'm at right now. And so I just started doing 20 push-ups, and then I think like 20 squats too, something like that. Like nothing too crazy, but so I did that for like a couple of months, and then I stopped just because I got kind of lazy too. But with that, like over that summer, I got out and I played tennis, and it was a fantastic time, but I was getting super tired, and so that was kind of where I was at, and I just kind of moved past it. I didn't say, you know what, I want to get better at tennis, I want to exercise more. I said, well, you know what, I had fun playing tennis, let's move on to the next thing. And I think that's where my problems were. I just sort of moved on with things and accepted them and didn't really have a growth mindset. But so that summer went by, and then school started back up, and that was when the whole cohort thing started. that was whatever. Like, it wasn't too bad. People complained about it a lot, but the schoolwork was super easy. Like, we were in school for half the time with at least something to fill my day with. Like, I found myself being a lot more satisfied. But I wasn't in band, I wasn't in chorus, so I wasn't doing any musical or dramatic stuff like with theater, just because COVID didn't really allow for that. And so I just went home and I played video games and watched movies, and that was it. But that spring, I looked back to that picture, and then I took another one after doing like another 15 push-ups because I couldn't do 20 at that point. And I said, you know what, I feel pretty good right now. I think I'm going to do 15 more. And so I did that. And starting from there, that's when I really, how do I want to put this? I had a change in mindset. I said, you know what, how good can I look? Because at this point, I've never really been that fit in my life. I've always been overweight. I've always been out of shape. Even playing soccer throughout elementary and middle school, I just was never in shape. And so I started researching like exercise and diet, and I found that really losing weight is really just as simple as how many calories are coming in and how many calories are coming out. And that's where I learned about caloric deficits, where you slightly cut off your caloric intake below your maintenance amount so that you can burn more calories. No, hold up. How does that work? You're taking in less calories than you need to maintain yourself so that your body burns off fat instead of those calories. I did that for a couple of months, and I found that my shape had drastically changed. I lost 20 pounds, so I went from 195 to 175 in 3 months in the spring of 2021 to that summer. And then from there, I just started doing a ton more push-ups, a ton more squats. I didn't really start running until 4 months ago, but that's sort of how my fitness journey kind of started. And then from there, we got a Bowflex, this huge machine, which instead of but then instead of using free weights, uses resistance, sort of columns. It uses pulleys, so that you can lift a certain amount determined by the resistance. And so I found by using that, I got just so much more defined. I'm going to make an Instagram post about this, and then I'll also put in before and after pictures. You can find my Instagram at Saxy Alex Intensified on Instagram. It's Saxy with an A, not an A. But having said that, I do also want to sort of switch gears and talk about growing up in the modern world, or at least growing up in general, really, with nostalgia and having things that you loved to do in the past and don't really enjoy to do anymore. But over the past week, I found this 2010s throwback music playlist on Spotify, which I can't stop listening to. The songs on there, people constantly say, oh, my music is so much better than this current trash that's out there right now. And I never used to get that, just because it was my music. But now that we have a sort of newer phase, I'm that guy. I can't listen to DJ Khaled without thinking what's he saying? He sounds like stupid. Just stuff like that. And so I found a lot of joy in listening to Maroon 5, Maps by Maroon 5. It's probably my favorite song at this point. I love it. But in addition to music, just super simple stuff like video games and media and certain how should I put it? Music, video games, media, and even clothing, I guess, and hairstyles too. Oh my god. I've been getting into hair recently. So actually, this is completely off topic, but this is another thing that I found myself getting really interested in. For my entire life, I've gotten haircuts every 2 or 3 months, kept it real short, just because I have really frizzy, puffy hair, so it looks awful when it's unmaintained. But over was it last summer or no, like during the fall, I finally got around to watching Game of Thrones, just because like 5 years ago nobody could stop talking about it. And so I watched it, and there's this one character in there, Jon Snow. If you know, you know, but his hair is glorious. And so I said, you know what? I'm gonna grow my hair out, and I'm gonna get those Jon Snow like strands or length or whatever. And so I'm currently working on that. But I've found that really using shampoo too much is so incredibly damaging to your hair. I can't even begin to tell you how bad it is. At least for mine. My hair doesn't really get too dirty because I don't do too many things that make me dirty. But yeah, I'd say use, if you want to maintain your hair, that is, to use shampoo whenever you feel like your hair is getting a bit too greasy, a bit too untamable, to use shampoo only then. For me, it's really just once a week I use shampoo. But aside from that, I just use conditioner. It's a special doTERRA conditioner I got from my stylist. This fantastic guy, Chris Edwards. He's the hair fellow online. If you need to get your hair checked out, he's an awesome guy. Going back to the advice, I did find in COVID, I really found myself losing track of what I wanted to be when I got out of high school. I found that I got, as I said before, I get really tunnel visioned, and so I get really focused on the thing that I'm doing right now, so much so, that I kind of lose sight of the bigger picture. But through COVID and through discovering what I'm really passionate for, I found that it's been a lot easier to manage the work now, just so that I'll be able to do the things that I love to do in the future. Specifically, ever since the 8th grade, I've been learning Spanish, and I love the language, but I never really had that drive to go there and speak with Spaniards or Mexicans or just people from South America. But for some reason, I think I played a video game, Assassin's Creed 2, set in Italy. I've been really passionate about that culture, that Mediterranean region. And so for 2 years now, I've actually been learning Italian, just because I'm going there actually this April. As of recording this, it's February 21st. So in 8 or 7 weeks, I'm going to be going to Italy. I should have said that from the beginning, oh my god. But so I'm going to be paying a lot of money to go with this group in April, who are going to Italy and to Greece, to learn about the culture, the language, to see where it is, what's going on over there, and to be a part of the culture. But we're going to have food there, and speaking Italian. Well, at least I hope that I can speak with native speakers, because I've been working really hard on it. If you know me, you'll know that sometimes I just break into Italian, just because I have nobody to talk to in Italian, because nobody wants to learn it. I can't even begin to tell you how many people I've asked if they wanted to learn Italian. Mostly people going on this trip, but also to just to acquaintances I barely know. But I'm fine, because it feels sick learning a new language. But that's what I've been really passionate about this past year, really, was learning Italian, or is actively learning Italian, just so that I can do something with my life after I get my career established. And so for right now, my plan is to get out of high school, really by doing this podcast, and then going to college for speech pathology, to get a job as a speech pathologist and really establish my career in my mid-20s. Yeah, and then after that, once I have really a nice home base, as in a house, I want to really just get out there and travel, possibly in the summers if I work at a school. I've still got to work that out, but all I know right now is that I want to spend my late 20s traveling. Not necessarily across the world, because I'm not really too interested, and a lot of the world is really dangerous, but really Europe, I think. I'd love to go to Italy multiple times, to frequent it, to visit different regions and hear different dialects and be a part of that. But then also to go to other European countries like England, see a ton of ancient castles, go to Spain, where I can hopefully speak Spanish, possibly get a lot more fluent in it, and speak with natives, go to Germany, go to France, just to see a bunch of different places, really. But if I could do that with my life, I think that I could really not make a name for myself, because I don't care about making a name. A name's a name, it doesn't matter. But really just enjoy this time that we have on Earth. Because right now, I see so often, especially around here, a lot of people establish their careers and then settle down and don't do anything, and then save traveling for when they're older, which is completely respectable. I completely respect that. Some people aren't in the situation to travel in their late 20s, just because of finances or because of having kids. Really, that's probably a big part of it. But I want to get it really all out of the way in my late 20s, just because that's going to be the prime of my life. I'm going to be the most physically able, biologically speaking, hopefully, if nothing goes wrong, to do that kind of stuff. Just because walking around for miles in your late 60s doesn't seem too appealing to me. But that's where I'm at right now. I'd love to travel. I'd love to see different parts of the world. I'd love to meet different people from different parts of the world, learn about cultures. But yeah, that's been where a lot of my drive stems from. But switching gears again, I want to talk about something a bit more personal, about dealing with setbacks. Now, obviously with COVID, it's been a major setback for everybody, and it's been really tough, I know. But especially for me, I haven't really talked about this a lot, but last June, I found out that my mom has a cancer, which is, as we all know, it's really something, and I'm not really sure still the gravity of it, really. It's kind of tough to comprehend, having somebody, get something so awful. But for the first few months, since I found out, I kind of just kept on moving without really giving it time to process and think about what it could mean, which is both a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because you still maintain your ability, well, not your ability, but really your happiness, I guess, and you really just push through it, just kind of bury the feelings and suppress it until they become problematic. And luckily for me, I'm not at the point where it's become problematic yet, but I think that by at least talking about this a bit on here will probably help me a bit. But with this whole thing, I've found that it's been incredibly easy to get yourself into what's known as a victim mentality, where you think, the world is against me, why am I being treated so badly? And it's a really awful mindset to be in. I've found that really the best way to look at it is, it sucks for you, but it sucks for a lot of people out there. The world doesn't end with you. And that's probably been the most difficult thing, was balancing having my mom home suffering, and still finding a way to push through it. But if you ever find yourself in that spot, just know that there are people out there for you, and there are people who will help you get through what you're going through. There are counselors, there are friends, there are loved ones, and there's also the person who is suffering from that condition. Just talking to my mom, I found, has been really helpful. She isn't as lively as she was, let's say, like a year ago. Well, a year and a half ago, I guess. She's probably just starting to deal with it at this point, last year. But they're still the same person. They're still your same loved one. In this case, my mom, who has raised me since she was like 20, I think, when she had me. But this sort of condition doesn't erase who that person is, and so that's something that you should never forget. This applies to a lot of things, I feel. My great-grandfather also has been declining mentally, which is understandable because he's really old. But the most important thing is to not let these painful memories of these people right now affect how you feel about them, because this isn't the prime of their life. Just as they wouldn't judge you for how you would act if you were in that same position. So empathy is a really, really powerful emotion which we all need to really get a grasp of, to understand each other. But moving on from all that sad stuff, I'm going to talk about managing your life. Managing your work life, your family life, your social life, your lives. And for a lot of people, I know, for especially my friends who are in just a ton of stuff like theater, chorus, band, it gets really, really tough because you can get overwhelmed, and this does negatively affect your life. Like, you get stressed out, and you get anxious and depressed. A lot of people find. For me personally, I've been involved in so much stuff like over the years. I don't know how I do it, really. So I've been in band and chorus. Band since 5th grade, and then chorus since the middle of 7th grade. But from band and chorus, there's a couple of after-school activities with those. For band, there's a jazz band after school from 2:30 to 4:30 on Thursdays after school. And then for chorus, there's a cappella, which is just like a singing group that takes place from like 2:30 to 3:30, and then after that there's the chamber choir, which is a more advanced chorus group, which takes place after a cappella from like 3:30 to 4:30 or 5. I can't remember how long. It's been since freshman year, just because of all the pandemic stuff that's been going on. But aside from that, I was also a Boy Scout in my early high school years. That was Mondays from 6 to 7. And then there was also soccer in middle school. Well, soccer doesn't really matter, I guess. No. But there was also theater, which during the season is basically every single day, or every single weekday after school, until when it really depends. But on top of all that, I started work sophomore year, so 2 years ago, and I started it in January. Now, you might already be able to tell where the conflict comes in. So I started work, and at that point my schedule was absolutely insane. Between jazz band and a cappella and chamber choir and Boy Scouts and theater and school, things were so stressful, and the first day of work I seemed fine like at work, but once I got home, I got so overwhelmed, so stressed. It's like I had a panic attack. Like, just I was so overwhelmed by everything going on. It just like got to be too much. And so my parents and I sat down and we just talked about the positives of pushing through all of these stressors and finding ways to balance your life and finding reasons for doing these things. And so coming out of that, I realized work is going to be so positive for me because I'm going to be able to maintain my own income, to be able to buy my own things, to be able to be more independent, less reliant on my parents. And so with just that alone, I managed to push through the sort of the negative feelings associated with starting a new thing, to really being excited to go to work. For the first couple of weeks, I just worked. I didn't listen to anything. I just faced shelves. I just cleaned toilets. I just swept the floor. I just filled the milk coolers. I did all that with just the sounds of the store, people talking and stuff like that. But after that, I started to get so bored. Like I can't even begin to tell you how bored I got. I'd be facing a shelf at like 6:30 at night, waiting for that final half hour until 7, where we could start sweeping up the floor to get ready for closing. And I just stand there facing items, and I'd just be in a trance, just in my own thoughts. And 30 minutes would feel like 30 years. It was the absolute worst. But at that point, I started doing some research. At that point, I didn't have wireless earbuds. I started seeing them pop up from time to time. People started talking about AirPods, and I thought that they were the stupidest looking things ever. Like dangling weird. I don't know. I still think they're pretty stupid, but I found a bunch of alternatives. There were Raycons, which I found out weren't super special, were just like a wireless earbud. So, thanks YouTubers. But there was also these MPOW earbuds, like which I got for like $30 as opposed to like $150. Just saying, and they were fantastic. But with those, I found podcasts. I found first like the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, which is still an incredible podcast. Joe Rogan, he has the ability to talk for days with anybody on the face of the earth about anything and manage to make it interesting. That's partially why I'm doing this here today, just because I really envy his ability to keep a conversation going. Even though I'm doing this here by myself, I still think that this is a good exercise in talking. So, thanks Joe Rogan. But aside from him, there's also just like a ton of other comedians. There's a Tom Segura with the Your Mom's House podcast. Don't check it out unless you're like 17 or older or 16. It's a really it's a pretty bad podcast. Not for school. But there's also Bill Burr's podcast, which he does with his wife, called the Bill and Nia podcast, which is just such a fun podcast because Bill Burr is probably one of the funniest people on the face of this planet. He's from Massachusetts, so he has that same New England rough and tough, snappy comedy type, but just his banter like with his wife is so incredibly like entertaining. He has 10 episodes at this point, or 12, that he's done since 2012 all the way up to 2020. So they're pretty spread out, but they're timeless. Like you can you can listen to them like at any point in your life and still find meaning from them. They're incredible. I love them. But podcasts are just an incredible way to spend your time learning or just kicking back and relaxing, doing some menial tasks like facing items in a store for a half an hour until you can finally start doing exciting things. So I definitely recommend those. But that's how I really deal with boring work. Oh God, that was a huge digression. We were talking about finding balance. That's it, finding balance. So actually, you know what? No, podcasts, that's how I found balance. I could tie my time together just by popping in an earbud and just listening to that. So if you want that, or balance, like that is, find something that you can really enjoy all the time and just link all the other stuff. If you can, don't pop in an earbud during class or during an after-school activity, just because that's not appropriate. But that's how I did it, was finding a podcast. So podcasts, you go. Fantastic. But with that being said, I do think I want to end off here. It's not quite an hour long, but I'm also not Joe Rogan or Bill Burr. I don't have the gift of gab, and I can't talk for decades. But before I close off, I do just want to give a couple of huge thanks. Firstly, to Rich Brooks with the Agents of Change podcast. You can find him at www.theagentsofchange.com. I had a 15-minute Zoom meeting with Mr. Brooks, and he's a fantastic guy. He has a great speaking voice, super nice, and he gave me a ton of really valuable advice. And if you want to go and support their podcast, just go to that website and check them out. They're definitely great people. So thanks again, Mr. Brooks. You're awesome. Also, I just want to say a huge thanks to you, the listener. Sitting there or facing items for 30 minutes, well, 40 minutes actually, around there, isn't easy, especially listening to my voice. This is my first time doing this, so I'm really rough around the edges. I've probably said 1,000 times in this, but there's a first for everything. And I'm so glad that I could really do this in this sort of manner and have it mean something to other people. So thank you for giving this the opportunity, your listen and your time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. So actually, with this podcast being done, this is also a pretty good example of how to manage stress. I've been really stressed out about this project just because it's the big final hurrah for my 12 or 13 years. I stayed back in kindergarten, so I can't tell if I've been in school for like 13 or 12 years at this point now. I can probably do simple math and find that out, but I just haven't sat down and done it. But it's a really big deal, and I found myself procrastinating. But I said to myself, if I can get this done during break, I can enjoy something that's coming out this Friday. It's called Elden Ring. If you're a gamer, you know what it is, and it's pretty hype. So I'm super excited for that. But with this podcast being done, I can take the rest of this week, get done a couple of less stressful schoolwork tasks, and then really be set. So to deal with stress, just get her done. Just do it. Shia LaBeouf, get it done. So, those are my words to you. A huge thanks again. And my name is Alex Emery, and this has been the DBFM podcast.